Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Debleaire Snell.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, and I'm here with, of course, my brothers, Pastor Debleaire Snell, speaker-director of Breath of Life, and the senior pastor of the Oakwood University Church. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm blessed. It's another wonderful Monday. It's the beginning of a new week.
Yeah.
With you guys, with our Breathe family.
Yeah, beautiful. And Pastor Kirk Nugent.
Hey, man, I'm here, man, and we're excited to be here for another Breathe podcast. I especially enjoy, when we have guests, but there's something special when just the hosts get a chance to chat it up.
Yeah. Chop it up. That's right. So today, I think we're chopping it up about something that has been essential to the Black community. Mm-hmm. Surviving being Black in America. How could we have done it without hope?
Hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hope.
Yep.
And I'd like to start by asking you, Pastor Snell, what's your concept of hope? How do you define it?
Yeah, so I think hope is, I actually think it is our greatest strength. It is, and hope is really, I just define it as expectation. Mm-hmm. Is to be able to maintain an expectation that is different than your reality. I think that one of the things reality does, and especially negative realities, I think they can pose as permanent. I think they can really set themselves up as immortal conditions that cannot be moved. But I think that, one of the things that we have to do, whether it is as African Americans in this country, whether it is a person dealing with a health challenge, a family challenge, a financial challenge, I think life can take a lot of things away from us, but the one thing we can never let it subtract is our hope. Yeah. I think that, it's interesting watching people, especially when you're counseling with people in different sorts. There's something about when you see the light go out in a person's eyes, and there is just this malaise that gathers over the soul. Yeah. It comes out in their energy, their conversation, their perspective. And I just think that, I think the saddest person on planet Earth is not a person that has a physical illness or a mental, it is a person that has allowed their hope to expire. And so that's my simple definition of hope. It's just kind of having an expectation that is different than the reality that I'm walking in right now.
Yeah. And as I think about it, it seems to me like hope is something that, as you said, it's about expectation. Mm-hmm. But expectation is also based on experience.
Very true.
You almost have to have something in your background or in your past to help you believe that things can be better, right?
The possibility of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I totally agree with you, and I agree with you as well. But I think that hope takes on several forms.
Yep.
In that hope is something that we can have, and by definition, it's something you can lose. But hope is also something that you do.
Yeah.
Hope is something that is active.
It's a habit.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's the best way I love to explain it, is that hope is a habit.
Yeah.
So what does that mean functionally? What does that mean?
Functionally, it means you it's active. It means it's something that you're actively doing. It means it's something that you bring to the table. So I approach all the things of life. I'm going to give a couple examples. One would be family. I approach my children with hope that what Pastor Snell said, what I see currently, there can be better. There will be better because I have hope. Yes, I have to give them discipline today. But
you do that in hope.
But you do that with hope that there will be right. And you approach your job with hope. You approach your work with hope. You approach your politics with hope. You approach your even your workout, your diet. You approach all of them with hope, because hope is something that you begin to allow to inform every aspect
So
of
with
your
the
life.
expectation of a positive outcome.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the expectation of a negative outcome.
As opposed to a negative outcome, or just being indifferent. And because I think when you talk about the light going out in somebody's eyes, you're talking about a level of indifference.
Yep.
It's not so much that they are believing negative.
Yeah.
They're not believing for anything.
Anything.
Ooh, yeah.
And so hope is not in either of those other two categories. I believe hope is something that believes for something positive. It's looking towards a better day. And when we talk about children of the diaspora, children of, and of course in this current context, in the African American context, children of slaves who had hope. I heard Eric Thomas say it once, where he was, some students were asking him, "What if you don't have 110% to give today?" Right? Because he talks about this whole thing of operating at this level, and he asked them, "When your forefathers were slaves, did they get a choice,
Right.
whether or not to show up at 110% or 80% or 70%? Did they get a chance to choose?"
Right.
Sometimes I do believe we remove from the scenario the operative term, which is that we get to choose. I think when we look at the slaves, they chose to be hopeful regardless of what they were currently seeing and experiencing. They chose hope. That's why the Negro spirituals are so rousing, because they're dripping with hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you talk about the slaves, they personified that whole idea that Paul talks about, where he says you don't look at those things which are seen. You look at those things which
that
are not seen. Or even when you look at something like, Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. It's interesting, like we kind of look at that speech now as like this self-obvious thing.
Right.
But like when you look at it during its time, because, it was filled with hope.
It was.
So when you look at even some of the tenets of it, that a man can be judged by the content of his character as opposed to the color of his skin, where men of all nations are able to sit down at the table of brotherhood. Like, do you realize that sounds like pie in the sky?
Sure does.
High-minded theological mumbo jumbo, to people at that time. So much, I think I read something where I think like 180 newspapers across the country condemned the speech. How one African-American paper, said that the speech was elitist, high-minded, and out of touch with the sentiments of the average American Negro.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think there was a senator from Arizona said that the speech bordered on the verge of treason in 1964. Like the I Have a Dream speech was treason. But it was so hopeful because it did not align with the reality of the time. Like, there was no real proof or evidence that would be the case. And so, I just think that, that's where hope operates. It doesn't operate with proof.
Yeah.
It doesn't operate according to data. Hope operates without momentum. So there's not like, man, this movement is already headed in that direction and hope just jumps on that train.
Yeah.
No, hope, man, still believes when everything is stationary, when circumstances are stagnant, realities are sedentary, I still maintain a certain hopefulness. And it's interesting because when you talked about indifference, one of the things I'm realizing, man, is that in our time, indifference is in style.
Mercy.
Like it's
mercy.
It's the order of the day.
Yeah.
And so, David, when you talk about disappointment and kind of a lot of times our perspective being shaped by experience, man, disappointment is such a dangerous thing. Because one of the things I think that disappointment does after a while is disappointment begins to leave its DNA on us.
Yeah.
And we have more of disappointment DNA than hope DNA. So we would actually rather live indifferent than to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So a lot of people for it say it's a safety mechanism.
Yeah.
I would just rather not hope for anything.
Than
keep
to
my expectations low.
Than to get my hopes up, and be disappointed. But for me, I don't know. I think I would rather be disappointed 9 times with that one breakthrough than to never believe for anything at all.
Yeah.
And I just think that's where many of us are relationally, in our health. And I think that indifference, especially when we look at the state of things in the African American community, I think that indifference is pervasive in our perspective, our speech, and our worldview as it relates to a lot of things in our community.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I think about when we talk about the Black experience historically and being hopeful, especially if we use the Negro spiritual as an example.
Okay.
The Negro spiritual does certainly have hopeful content, but a lot of times that spiritual also musically was a blues.
Yeah,
Right?
it was. Yeah.
So
There's a grieving element to
right.
it. Yeah.
So
The
there
lament,
is this right.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of this interesting juxtaposition of hopeful expectation, aspirationalism, but it's against a backdrop of sorrow, despair. You know, that's something that I think is unique.
Yeah.
To us and
To
our
us.
experience.
Oh
right?
yeah. And it's so funny because it seems like perhaps those motifs are in conflict. But see, hope is not a denial of reality.
There it is.
It's not saying life doesn't hurt right now. It's not saying I'm not broke. It's not saying racism doesn't exist.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it is simply the unwillingness to accept the current reality as the only reality. It is that inner resilience that drives you, and that causes you to look at the world with more than physical eyes. And so, I tell people all the time that hope and faith is not the denial of reality. It is simply the belief that, the reality doesn't have to be permanent. And I do think the one thing that slaves, who many times operated as sharecroppers, I think one of the things that they understood was seasons.
Oh, seasons. Yes.
No season is permanent.
Permanent. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like at some point this winter is going to give way to spring.
Yeah.
Spring gives way to,
So good.
summer.
Yeah.
Summer gives way to
Oh,
fall.
wow.
And it just repeats. And so I think that even when you look at the African American experience, there obviously there have been brutal winter, but then there are going to be these surges where there are legislation is passed and progression takes place, and there's some springtime moments, and then there's some summertime moments, and there's Obama and Michelle.
Come on. Yeah.
But then fall and winter come back again.
Fall and winter.
And you got number 45. And you see what I'm saying? So I do think that there's
ebb and flow.
kind of a cyclical nature, to things. And I think you see that in our experience. So like what, I think, a lot of political commentators always call as the white lash, you know what I'm saying?
Mercy.
Where every step of progress is going to be met with this, you're going to have that season of celebration, but then there's just going to be this immense pushback. I just think it kind of speaks to the fact that they're just seasons. And I think the slaves, they really understood that concept. It's funny, there was these, I still don't know what the name of these flowers when we bought our house. And so they were so beautiful in the spring and in the summer. But then the seasons change and all the little petals fall off and they die, and they're just barely a skeleton. And it's like, oh snap, what's happening? And my wife and my mom are just kind of, it's winter. That's what they do. Calm down. And in spring they come right back and they turn green and they blossom, so on and so forth.
But it doesn't look like it. Yeah.
And after you go through enough seasons, you don't panic. When those leaves begin to fall and turn brown.
That's good.
Because you realize this is the season we're in, but that season is not written in stone. It's not permanent.
That's good. Yeah, a college friend of mine and I would do that when times were tough. And in hindsight, times weren't tough, but we thought they were tough at the time. And
isn't that a better perspective?
There it is.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. It's all. When do you come at that thing? So looking back, I'm like, no, times weren't tough. But we thought we were in a tough season, and what we would do is we'd say, what will we be doing this time next month?
Yeah.
Or this time next year. And what it would do is catapult you into the future and the fact that there is a future. So which means you will get past the current moment.
Sure.
And there was a hope that came from that one experience and that one practice that really helped us.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I think when we talk about the concept that hope is a habit, it also stems from beginning to recognize where your hope comes from.
Right. Yes.
I know for me, my time in the morning that I spend in worship gives me an outlook and a perspective for my day that I know is different than some of my colleagues. That I know is different from others who are just barely getting out the door in the morning because it's just a frenetic rush. But having that time of stillness and study and allowing God to speak really kind of sets the tone. And you kind of recognize that I'm a part of something bigger. I'm not just a happenstance, or I just kind of came to be. God has a purpose, and when you have purpose, you've got to have hope. And so there are those pieces. When we talk about hope being a habit, a habit is something that you can practice. And you can practice those things that give you that hope.
And you're preaching now, Kirk, because one of the things I do think every believer, and especially believers of color, but just believers, period, I think everybody has to have. You have to develop a theology about trouble. Like I think you have to have some axioms, some convictions that help you sort through seasons of pain and discomfort. Because one of the things I love about the Bible is that, man, the Bible doesn't put anything in the fine print.
No.
Like Jesus lays it all out there in front of us. Like Psalm 34 says, many are the afflictions of the righteous. He doesn't say every now and then.
No.
He says many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them from them all. He says, man, in this world, you're going to have tribulation.
Right.
But fear not, I've overcome the world.
Come on.
So I think that even in your mind, you've got to be able to kind of say, okay, wow, not all trouble is earned.
Right.
Most of our troubles are inherited. Like it is the result of our foreparents.
Right.
Letting sin, calamity, and death into our world. So like everything isn't like, man, I caused this and this is the effect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're just inherited calamity. I think part of it is recognizing that, there is spiritual attack. Part of it is recognizing, okay, all right, maybe this is what I sowed.
This is my crop.
This is what I'm reaping. I overspent, and now I'm here. Bro. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I overate, and now my pants don't. You know what I'm saying? Like those are just kind of consequences, or even just being able to recognize that God, who is not the author of all pain, he is able to repurpose our pain. In a way that, man, there's Rick Warren has this great quote, man. He's just like, man, God never wastes a hurt.
Love it.
So that like even our trials have purpose. And it's crazy because like, we talk about it all the time. When you go to a gym, you work out. You know what I'm saying? Exercise. You stretch. You hire a personal trainer.
Sometimes,
But you know what exercise is? It's voluntary pain.
That's true.
That's what it is.
That's true.
It's voluntary pain.
This is so true.
That creates desired benefit. Like, man, like I literally put myself through uncomfortable series of activities because you want biceps, triceps, thin waist, and you're willing to endure that pain. Because you believe in what it produces.
That's good.
And if you're willing to endure physical pain for physical traits, there are traits that emerge spiritually, emotionally, that cannot be received any other way except through going through some seasons of discomfort, pain. Like, I mean, how else are you going to get patience?
It
outside of having to wait.
You see what I'm saying? And you may have asked for patience. And so
you
now
prayed for it.
You prayed for patience. This is what I'm saying. You prayed for it, and then God sends you the trial to teach you patience, and then you're in the trial in despair. But these are the things I think a lot of the times I've just kind of, in my own experience and talking with others, some of the younger guys that I get a chance to mentor, some of my peers that I chat with, what I've noticed is that people don't reflect enough. We don't sit.
We react more than we reflect.
We don't sit at the end of a day, week, year, month, anything, and say, how did that go?
Yeah.
One of the things I love about, in coaching for content, you have to go back and watch your stuff.
Yeah.
You got to go back and watch the video. You got to go back and watch the live stream. And you got to make notes. That you have to do. In fact, I tell some folks the best part of the process is the review. Because in review is where you can innovate. Review is where you get a chance to tweak.
Yeah.
Review is where you go to the next level.
Yeah.
But in life, we don't do enough.
We don't do enough of that.
Review.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're just kind of moving from one event to the next, and you don't get a chance to tweak and improve and innovate to know yourself.
And when you don't review, your mistakes become immortal.
And I also hear you both saying, when you don't review, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to cultivate hope.
To cultivate hope.
Yeah, because you got to do some reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think about, the fact that where you are is not necessarily where you're going to
Come
be.
on.
Right?
Yeah.
Or where you were.
Where you were.
Yeah, that's right. But you got to take time to reflect on it. Well, as you can tell, it was just me and Pastors Debleaire, Snell, and Kirk Nugent today on Breathe, chopping it up about hope. A lot of meaty, well-textured thought and conversation there today. And I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We enjoy being together and talking and fleshing these things out, and hope you enjoy it with us. Tune in for part 2 of the conversation next time on Breathe. Until then, I'm David Person. God bless you, and don't forget, no matter how challenging life may be, hope is essential to moving from challenging times into promising times. So get you a scoop of hope. God delivers it. You can have it. All you need to do is stop right where you are. Say a word of prayer. And then breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debleaire Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.